President Donald Trump did it again. He made history, quite literally, with a record-breaking trade deal with the European Union, and the implications of this trade deal around the world are going to be huge. I'm going to go where mainstream media won't be willing to go. I'm going to explain all of the incredible things President Donald Trump literally did in Scotland yesterday, including the impact that he's now having on both Russia and China, our two biggest economic rivals. And I'm also going to talk about what the future looks like with this trade deal in place, all right here, right now on American Advocates. All right, it'll obviously be a lot more exciting to listen to everybody's hero, President Donald Trump, read down the list of what the European Union just agreed to in this incredibly one-sided trade deal.
Is going to agree to purchase from the United States $750 billion worth of energy. $750 billion worth of energy.
All right, so we're going to stop right there because that is massive, and it has serious implications on other countries, mainly our rivals when it comes to this. $750 billion of investment in our American energy. Now, this is going to be spaced out over the next 3 years of Trump's terms, so exactly $250 billion per year spent on American energy. And what is the primary source of energy we're going to be selling to them at this rate? American oil. And this is going to be huge, and this is why Vladimir Putin right now is steaming at this deal. He is livid because for years, the European Union has been buying Russian oil and supporting Russia through these oil purchases. And it's been a bit hypocritical on the European Union's part because in typical EU fashion, they grandstand both against America, but also in support of the Ukraine. And so while they've sent aid in the form of money to the Ukraine, they've actually spent more, a lot more, in money with Russia buying their oil and therefore supporting Russia in the Russia-Ukraine war more than they supported Ukraine. That now is coming to an end, however.
Some Russian gas and oil still in the European Union, which we do not want anymore. We want to absolutely get rid of Russian fossil fuels. And therefore, it is much welcome to purchase the more affordable and better LNG from the United States. And there, approximately, our estimation is that we can do 250 per year over 3 years.
They are going to agree to invest into the United States $600 billion more than they're investing already. So they're investing a large amount of money. You know what that amount of money is. It's very substantial, but they're going to invest an additional $600 billion.
Okay, that right there is also massive. And this is the part of the deal now that's going to not only be helping out America tremendously, but also negatively impacting China, our even bigger enemy. China outright wants to demolish Western ideals, Western culture, and remove it from the face of the planet. They are our true enemies. And President Donald Trump, with these trade deals, like I said, is playing chess at a global level. And the main thing he is doing is he is isolating China and cornering them, making deals with the Philippines and Indonesia and Japan and Vietnam. And he's going to be making more and more deals with Southeast Asia, isolating China. But if they thought that that was the only front they had to worry about, they're completely wrong, because now President Donald Trump has found a way to attack them through the European Union and through this EU trade deal. And I'm going to explain to you how right now, because the $600 billion in additional investments that the European Union is going to be making in America will be coming at the expense of them otherwise doing it in China. I'll explain. There's recent data indicates a shift in the EU-China trade dynamic. EU imports from China decreased in the period between January 2023 and December 2024, although exports also saw a decrease. And I'll tell you right now what's happening with this. The EU and China have actually been growing more tense in their trade relationships and negotiations. They haven't actually been improving those like the mainstream media wants you to believe. Because you see at the start of all this with the Liberation Day tariffs, the liberal doom and gloomers and the incredibly cocky grandstanding European Union citizens loved to go online and tout about how the Orange Man is isolating America from the rest of the world with this harsh negotiation when it comes to tariffs and trade deals. They wanted you to believe that Trump was ruining us by being a firm negotiator. But the actual fact of the matter is there was never going to be some sort of involvement where Canada and Europe and China all formed together in this beautiful, wonderful new friendship to replace trading with America. That was never going to happen. That was nothing more than a daydream liberal fantasy. And boom, just like that, Trump brings us all back to reality, reminding everyone that our markets are the most desirable. America cannot be replaced for a multitude of reasons, more of which I'll be going over in a second here. But what's important to note then is that $600 billion now is the European Union putting China on notice and letting them know, hey, we're not actually investing in more manufacturing in your country. We're doing it in America now. And so China is fuming, Russia is fuming, and there's more to this. Let's go back to President Donald Trump speaking about the details and see what he says next.
They're agreeing to open up their countries to trade at zero tariff. So that's a very big factor. Their countries, all of the countries, will be opened up to trade with the United States at zero tariff.
This is another huge one, and this is becoming a common theme with Trump's trade deals that he is now making very rapidly because the August 1st deadline is approaching, and unlike what the liberals want you to think calling him taco, he doesn't actually chicken out, and this deadline is actually serious. So now these countries are all coming through, trade deals are actually being made, and the common theme with these trade deals, one of them being that they all are opening up their markets to American exports at a 0% tariff rate. The implications of this are huge when it comes to our automobile industry particularly. There are no Ford pickups, Chevy pickups. There are no American luxury cars over in the European Union. They have blocked our cars from being able to be sold there for years now with extremely ridiculous trade barriers, trade taxes, import taxes, tariffs, etc. No more. It's an open marketplace. Now, this open marketplace in the EU will also help America when it comes to steel and aluminum, something President Donald Trump has spoken very passionately about, taking pride in our American steel. It used to be a huge industry for us, and under President Donald Trump, it will be once again. To some degree, I believe also agriculture will apply to this as well. So once again, President Donald Trump, the most farmer-friendly president in my entire lifetime. But it really does just keep getting better from here. So let's go back to President Donald Trump and hear what he has to say next. But before you do that, be sure to subscribe to American Advocates for more content like this, especially if this is not the first time you've watched me. Because at this point, I'm starting to put a tariff on every one of my viewers. And the tariff is you need to subscribe or you're going to have to start Venmoing me 15% of your weekly paycheck. So subscribe to American Advocates, click that bell icon so you stay notified every time I upload a video. Back to Trump.
And they're agreeing to purchase a vast amount of military equipment. We don't know what that number is, but it's the good news is we make the best military equipment in the world, so sort of you have to do that. I mean, until somebody tops us, which is not going to happen. We're way ahead of every other country in terms of the quality of the military equipment, right?
Okay, so adding on even more money in investments towards our military products, our military equipment. Now, this is the most desirable military equipment in the world, so this one only makes sense. But the incredible thing to focus on with all this is they're likely going to be spending hundreds of billions of dollars more on purchasing our military equipment. And when you add up these figures all together, $750 billion investment in our energy, particularly our oil, which shuts Putin out even more. $600 billion in manufacturing investments right here in America on our soil, which shuts out China even more. Combine that, and you have a $1.3 trillion investment from the European Union, and that's before we have the total for the amount of U.S. military equipment that they're going to be spending. And therefore, you can conclude easily that it'll likely be $1.5 trillion, $1.75 trillion, maybe even $2 trillion of investments from the European Union into the American economy. This is the single biggest U.S. trade deal made at a global scale possibly ever, probably in history of the entire world.
We are agreeing that the tariff straight across for automobiles and everything else will be a straight across tariff of 15%. So we have a tariff of 15%. We have the opening up of all of the European countries, which I think I could say were essentially closed. I mean, you weren't exactly taking our autos, you weren't exactly taking our agriculture, and then you would have smaller things, but for the most part it was closed. And now it's open. It's open for our companies to go in and do a good job with it. I think you'll like.
Okay, 15% tariffs all across the board on our end to Europe. So anytime they export anything, it's a 15% tariff. This is also a common theme we're now seeing in all these trade deals. There is very much so a trade deficit that America has with a bunch of these countries. Ursula openly admits it. The liberals obviously don't. They like to pretend it's not really a thing and that it's all a one happy free market place, but it never has been. And now Trump is shattering that illusion by coming in and saying, yep, there's a trade deficit. You're going to make up for it. Or you're going to be paying this amount of tariffs, and you're going to do that until the deficit is rebalanced and we're even, and then we'll re-explore the free market. Now, what's important to note with this 15% tariffs on the European Union is, once again, stacking up that annual tariff revenue generation. 15% tariffs on the European Union is going to wind up generating $78 billion annually for America. And that's just the European Union. What Trump is doing with all these countries, they're all going to be paying tariffs. We're going to be seeing hundreds of billions of dollars of tariff revenue being generated in America once again under Trump's leadership. This is what's so huge about this. And I will have a video out in the future on the implications of this tariff revenue, because what Trump is planning to do by using this tariff revenue and implementing it is absolutely brilliant, first of all, but also very populist of him. So much so that it could be historically monumental in garnering a record number of support for the Republican Party if he pulls it off. Now, here was one of the funniest things about this entire situation here. This trade deal is so good for America on paper. It is like a dream come true for America and for rebalancing the trade deficit and for sticking it to the European Union. Well, a reporter just went up flat out asking it, saying, you know, this deal sounds amazing for America, but what has America actually conceded in this trade deal? What are they giving up in this trade deal as part of the negotiations? Listen to how she answers.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for the EU Commission President. What are the U.S. concessions? What is the U.S. giving up in the deal, if anything?
So the starting point was an imbalance, a surplus on our side and a deficit on the U.S. side. And we wanted to rebalance the trade relation. And we wanted to do it in a way that trade goes on between the two of us across the Atlantic, because the two biggest economies should have a good trade flow between us. And I think we hit exactly the point we wanted to find. Rebalance, but enable trade on both sides, which means good jobs on both sides of the Atlantic, means prosperity on both sides of the Atlantic. And that was important for us.
Okay, so essentially, she answered it like a politician should and would, but we gave up nothing. This deal was completely one-sided. The European Union got absolutely shafted by President Donald Trump. He went in there, told her exactly how it was going to be, and she essentially said, yes, sir. And that's how this deal was created. And props to Ursula. She recognizes the unfair nature of the trade deficit that had occurred with the European Union, and she's willing to correct it. However, this has not been a good day for her or a popular decision on her end. She is now upset all of the people who live in the European Union, who on social media for years now have been grandstanding against America, telling us how much we suck, how we're not the world's superpower anymore, and how the world is moving away from us. Because now they all look foolish. Starting with the news here, some Europeans are currently fuming over the European Union deal with President Trump. Not one concession from the American side, said the former Prime Minister of Belgium. He goes on to state, apparently, in his quote, the EU-US deal is scandalous, a disaster. Oh, man, there's a picture of him if you want to see what the Muppet looks like. That's what a typical male leader in the European Union looks like. Isn't that something? And you know something? I can understand the frustration to some degree, because Ursula von der Leyen is also guilty of this tough talk and grandstanding. This was her back on April 3rd, the day after Trump announced the Liberation Day tariffs.
Many of you feel let down by our oldest ally. Yes, we must brace for the impact that this will inevitably have. Europe has everything it needs to make it through the storm. We are in this together. If you take on one of us, you take on all of us. So we will stand together and stand up for each other. Our unity is our strength.
So she talked all tough a few months ago, And then she goes from that to complete capitulation. Not a single concession needed on America's end. She gave us everything Trump wanted. So of course the people are upset. And it shows because I want to show you just a few of the comments under her main post where she announced this deal on X. Hilarious stuff. And before I show you those, if you made it this far to the video, give the video a like. Thanks so much. So let's take a look because these comments are absolutely hilarious. Scrolling down from the post, you can see this guy right here. This ruined his entire week. And yet, EU-US deal, 15% tariffs on EU goods, $600 billion EU investment in the US, $150 billion in US energy, and billions in US weapons. He doesn't even get the number right. It's $250 billion per year, $750 billion total in US energy, with 0% tariffs for US and the EU. This isn't balance. It's surrender. You need to go. Here's another good one. EU drops tariffs. EU commits $750 billion for U.S. energy. EU invests $600 billion in the U.S. EU buys U.S. weapons, while the U.S. slaps 15% tariffs on EU exports. U.S. got a deal. EU got the bill. You are an effing disgrace. Europeans are ashamed of you. Resign. I love this one. This is not a deal. It's a betrayal. Von der Leyen just sold out Europe to Trump. 15% tariffs. He goes on to list all of the details again, which we've heard several times now. $750 billion to fuel America's energy and war machine. She didn't negotiate. She surrendered. I absolutely love to see that because it's about time somebody rises up as the president of the United States and reminds the European Union of their place in this world. It's certainly not above America. It's also not on our right or left side. It's not side by side with us. No, it is beneath us. We've been funding everything that makes the European Union great. They have been completely spoiled by us. President Donald Trump is not letting them get away with any of the typical stuff that they've been accustomed to getting away with for years now, all while simultaneously grandstanding on the world platform against America like the ungrateful little children that they are, living in their so-called privileged society that is funded by American grace, mercy, and money. Those days are over now. President Donald Trump is bringing back fairness to the trade market, and he's doing what any good president should be doing, putting America first. Glory to America. God bless President Donald Trump, and God bless the USA.